in order to leave your job, you need to totally replace your income. And honestly, that isn't quite the route that we went with it. Or I could drop to zero income right now, or much lower income, but that gives me time and energy to kind of hockey stick this thing.
So you actually hired a VA while you were still working your other job. When in your journey did you write a book for BiggerPockets?
We all get the same 24 hours. So why is it that some people build so much more with them? I'm Brian Coons, and this is the Builder Nation podcast, where we talk to top performers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to uncover the architecture of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Let's get into it.
Today's guest is Miller McSwain, a former nuclear rocket scientist who walked away from a six-figure W-2 after realizing just 7 properties and 51 rooms could replace his income completely. He's now running one of the strongest co-living portfolios in Colorado Springs, producing over $10,000 a month in cash flow, and he's also the author of Co-Living Cash Flow, which is a BiggerPockets book. So Miller's story isn't just about quitting his job. It's about engineering a business model that actually creates housing, more cash flow, and freedom. So I would love to roll into it of how you convince yourself that the job of a rocket scientist, you were ready to leave and build a co-living empire. So let's start kind of there of like what gave you, I guess, the balls to actually make the jump.
Yeah, I think I think people have different risk tolerances, and I was definitely on the on one end of that spectrum that was definitely more risky, I think. So yeah, a lot of people talk about, kind of like you said in the intro there, that in order to leave your job, you need to totally replace your income. And honestly, that isn't quite the route that we went with it. We had built our co-living portfolio, decently at that point. I think maybe whenever I quit, we're at 7 properties now. Maybe we were at like 5 or so whenever I quit. And that's producing around $10,000 a month in cash flow. But we did buy those with partners, actually. So really, we're not taking home that much. I didn't fully replace my income by the time I quit. It was enough to make us feel good that we were on the right track to where, yeah, this could overtake the W-2 income that we're leaving behind pretty soon. But instead, kind of what I leaned on was, one, we kept our expenses like very low. We were house hacking. We were living in the house that we were in, one of the houses that we were renting out. My wife has a job, and she was bringing home around like $4,000 a month or so. And that kind of covered our expenses. So it was like, even though I quit my job, even though that goes to zero, our expenses are still able to be covered by my wife. Now, we weren't saving money to plow into the next deal and all that. So yeah, income did need to get up. But it was more of a kind of a trade-off of, hey, I could stay at this W-2 and get 3% raises every year. Or I could drop to zero income right now, or much lower income, but that gives me time and energy to kind of hockey stick this thing, so that a year later, 2 years later, I'm way ahead of where I was with the W-2. And anyway, that is what we're seeing now. We have more time to be able to buy properties, find partners, improve management, all of that, because I don't have that W-2.
How much energy do you think you got back from quitting your job to actually pursue some of these other things?
Yeah, it's a lot. It was incredibly draining. I was working from home, but still sitting down at a desk, having 2 laptops in front of me every day, one work laptop, one real estate, business laptop, and switching brain modes, going back and forth between the two, taking a tenant call, then hopping on a meeting and presenting something, So it was definitely draining. I did lose some time whenever I did switch, though. So we had a virtual assistant who was doing a good amount of work in our business, and she quit basically whenever I quit my job. So some of my new responsibility became doing some things that she was doing, and we actually just hired that out again the other day. So now I'm totally freed back up again. But overall, though, it's such a mental clean out when you get to dump the old laptop, your work laptop, and now you sit down with one every day and have like a single focus.
Yeah, 100%. So you actually hired a VA while you were still working your other job.
Oh, yeah. So that actually became instrumental, I think. Maybe it sounds kind of backwards at first to some folks, but really, like, that's what enabled me to stay at the job and make the, $80K a year or so that I was making, that helped us start our portfolio. I was able to run the business and do all that while making that $80K a year at the W-2, because we did hire someone to help and take some workload off.
But that's actually really interesting. So like, how did you, because I've hired a couple of VAs and I've not had, great experiences with all of them. What are some of the ways that you actually got the VA to do what you needed them to do at a level that wasn't just $4 an hour?
Yeah. So this is something that I did not do well initially. In fact, whenever you read the BiggerPockets book, I even say in there, I'm like, there's a part about virtual assistants, and I'm like, we've done it, but honestly, it did not turn out super well. So, do some other research and find some other methods to learn about how to hire them. But now we have done it pretty successfully over the last 3 or 4 weeks. We were doing a lot of screening to hire someone new and just completed it. So it's actually super fresh on my mind. The main thing that we did, or maybe I'll go from the mistakes. So the mistakes that we made the first time, one, I limited our applicant lead flow to people in similar time zones. So I was thinking, hey, if somebody's going to come in and help out with property management, I want it to be daytime where they're at, and daytime at the same time that where all of our tenants and everything are located. So I was like, all right, we're going to be mountain time plus or minus 2 or 3 hours or something like that. And so that took us to Latin America. So we ended up hiring from Mexico for a little bit, and from El Salvador, we hired someone else. And that was great. It was cheaper than a US person, and they were in the same time zone. But the quality wasn't quite there for the pay, versus this time we did go Philippines, which everyone talks about all the time. We did go there and basically paid the same amount. We're paying close to $10 an hour, but the quality is like way higher. Like $10 an hour there is like,
significantly higher
than in
here.
Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one thing.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense.
So now we are looking over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So so it sounds like you've kind of went through some of those learning curves with VAs from just the hiring perspective. How did you define the role? I think that's something that I've learned is super important, is clearly defining the role of the VA before you hire them. So how did you kind of put that together, and what does that look like?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that is huge. I was talking to a guy one time, and he was like, yeah, I just hired a VA, but now I don't really know what to give them, and it takes me more time to give them something and explain it to them and all that. And the more we got to talking about it, I was like, well, you don't have anything defined for yourself either. So kind of what we've been doing is we use, Asana. There's Asana, ClickUp, all these different task management tasks or softwares. And even when I was the only person at the company, I was using that. I was creating tasks for myself, putting in, video guides, processes, the checklist, all of that into the task. And so now every time that we have hired someone, this is really the second person that we have in the company right now. And every time we've hired someone, it's super easy to make the switch, because I just click on that task and assign it to the new person. And I've been following the instructions in that task for months, years, whatever. So that made it really easy to hand off and have higher odds that we get better quality of work.
Nice. That makes sense. So I think a lot of people, they want this magic pill where they could just hire somebody and it completely, gets taken off their plate. But I think the reality is pretty much everything in the business you have to do first. And that's something I've learned is you, at least for me, you have to create what you want first, and then they can optimize. But I've noticed that I think a lot of those hires tend to be very, just not the best at creating what a process looks like. But once they start doing the process 20 times, they're like, hey, this is probably a better way to do it. Have you seen that kind of in your experience?
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah, I think you can hire someone to immediately take stuff off your plate, but that's like a COO, and they're going to be very expensive. So that's literally what I was talking with that guy about in the beginning. He didn't have anything written down and all that. And I'm like, okay, well, you probably can't hire the $10, the $8 an hour person. You need to hire a COO if you haven't already built all of this out, right? Or you need to hire someone that's much more expensive who does have the capability to do that. Now, that is one thing that we are thinking about. I was getting some advice from some other guys who have, hired in their company. And I was asking them, I was like, oh, well, what do you do for, do you do a DISC assessment or something like this, to some sort of personality test to learn how this person looks at problems and all of that? So when you talk about defining the role, that is one thing that we did. I sat down, I'm like, okay, we want someone to be a property manager, and you can use ChatGPT and a lot of things to help with this. And I'm like, hey, if I had them take the DISC assessment, how would I want them to score? So, and the DISC assessment was I think you want high, I don't remember. It was 2 of them, S&C, something like that. And then I had everyone who applied take this DISC assessment, send me the results, and that filtered us down from 100 applicants to 15 who kind of hit that. But one thing that we also added to the mix to kind of spice it up, we did look for some high D also, meaning they're more entrepreneurial, more dominant, more can go and do things on their own. So yeah, we want them to be able to be detailed and follow our processes. But with this being our main property management hire, I want them to one day be the manager of the other folks who come in underneath them. So for like the initial hire in like a division or like in an area, I think we're going to keep doing that, spicing like some D in there so that as they get more experienced and we make more money as a company, they can move up, we can hire people underneath them, and they do have the ability to manage at that point.
Okay, that makes sense. So you guys do manage your own portfolio, right? Of like the 51 rooms.
Yep. So it's all in-house. Yeah. Self-managed / in-house. So historically it's been me or someone in the company.
Got it. Okay. The reason I asked, so if there was a way that you could, if there was a short blurb that you could tell somebody on how to manage their own properties effectively without hating their life, asking for personal reasons, how would you do that? Because to me, it's the worst part about real estate is property management.
Yeah. I couldn't do it in one sentence. But I can
Take as many as you
take a
want.
stab. Yeah. Okay. I'll take a stab at using more than one sentence. I think the main thing for us was approaching it from the perspective of let's act like this is remote. Like let's pretend that we do not live next to our properties. And so that's what we did when we were scaling this portfolio on our own, without the help of VAs or whatever for the first couple years was, okay, cool. When we were house hacking, okay, we're living in the house, but we were living in the house hack and literally still treating the upstairs tenants as if we did not live there. Like we're emailing them from property management at website. We're texting them from the property management number. We have a cleaner that goes and does all the turns upstairs. We're not going up there and doing them, even though we do live there. So whenever we did purchase properties that we did not live at, even if they were 5 minutes away, cool. Now that all directly applied to that. And then, yeah, so at this point, we did actually move like 30, 45 minutes away from home. And yeah, we're still continuing to treat it remote. And that's why we're able to hire someone in the Philippines to do everything because they can be remote. So some key points maybe that enables you to treat it remotely. You have to rely on other people to have eyes on the property, to step foot in the property and take care of certain things. So we have our cleaner go through on a monthly basis. So we use a co-living strategy. So we're buying houses that we're renting out by the room, and then there's a common living room, a common kitchen, all that. So we have a cleaner come through and clean living room, kitchen, bathrooms, things like that on a monthly basis. So they have eyes on the property. They let us know if anything's gone weird. There's, depending on the house, 5 to 10 people, residents there. One of them's going to be a tattletale, which is great. Thank you. I'll take that feedback and that's good eyes on the property. Our handyman goes through every 3 months and does a bunch of proactive things, a checklist that he goes through, but also shoots a video of the entire property inside the rooms, inside the living room, exterior of the house, the whole deal, sends it to us. We can review that. So those are some things we've done to kind of set it up remotely.
I think that's so smart. I mean, I've had a few Airbnbs where if you leverage the cleaner as your for that, your property manager, they're your eyes and ears. They go through your checklist of making sure that the leaks aren't, no leaks, no roof issues, no, cleanliness issues. That makes tons of sense. So yeah, you're getting eyes on the property every few weeks. It sounds like at a bare minimum.
Yeah, and to layer on top of that, we do have cameras in the property too. Obviously, that's like a co-living specific kind of thing, but we do have like a camera watching the living room and the kitchen because there's like certain quirks with co-living where things can happen. Like we had a naked guy walking through the house one time, which, yay that we had cameras, kind of not yay because we got to see it, but it gave us evidence to, kick that guy out. So yeah, we even have those eyes on the property too, like literally 24/7.
Yeah. So aside from that story, what are some of the other crazy stories that you've had from, I assume with so many people living in one singular space,
yeah,
you're going to have some nightmares go on. Like what are some of the stories you remember?
Yeah, we definitely do have some nightmares. If you set things up right, it's a lot less than you'd think. So it's like 2 or 3% last time I looked. 2 or 3% of folks that move in, we do have to kick out for some weird community, like co-living specific type scenario, like something goes weird in the house. So yeah, so there was the naked guy walking around. That was definitely the weirdest one. But otherwise, yeah, we've just had situations where like this woman moved in and accused a guy in the house of pulling a gun on her. And like we go back and look at the footage and like straight up, they just had a conversation, like no gun involved. And then she lied about some other people in the house and we got evidence from like text messages and stuff like that. That wasn't true. And so, yeah, there's just weird people that maybe shouldn't be living in a co-living environment, but they're forced to because of, financial reasons. And so, you just have to be wary of that and really protect the community and get them out when something weird occurs like that, or someone burned a hole through their bedroom floor one time doing drugs, I assume. But again, this is 2% of cases. 98% of people are awesome. They get along with people and they need a cheaper place to live. And so that's kind of the real purpose.
That makes sense. What so when you like are getting it, so you have like 7 properties now, like on one singular property, how like kind of take me through the deal, right? Because obviously I'm assuming it's not set up as a co-living space up front. So how do you set it up as a co-living space in a very efficient way to actually maximize the cash flow on it?
Hey guys, if you're a business owner, high income earner, or investor who's been thinking about getting into real estate development but don't have the time to manage the process, this is for you. My company partners with people like you to help unlock the potential of your properties or even source and manage new small scale development projects. We manage hundreds of ADUs and infill development projects across Southern California, and our team knows how to simplify the process so you can benefit from the upside without managing contractors, permits, or design headaches. Whether you want to develop your own property, explore ways to offset taxes, or just learn how the development model works, head to thebuildernation.com/partner. That's thebuildernation.com/partner, and see how we can help you build more with the same 24 hours. Now back to the show.
I think in the future, there will be properties that you could buy as co-living off the bat. Kind of like you could go buy a short-term rental right now that's someone selling and it's already furnished and all of that. It's just, we are still in the early days of co-living. So right now, and as far as, making plans go, I think you should plan to purchase something that's not co-living from off the bat. If you find one, cool. But typically it's not going to be set up that way. So we do have to go through that work up front. So typically what we're doing is looking for very large houses that have great parking. So maybe that depends on the market, but for us, very large houses, 2,500 square feet plus, like anything that falls into that, we'll make it through our filters and make it to us. In reality, what we've actually been purchasing the last 3 or 4 houses have been 3,100 square feet or bigger. But as far as our filters go, we're set to 25. So once properties make it through the square footage filter, the other thing we're looking at is location. So we want to be close to hubs of employment for whoever would want to rent a room in your city. So in our case, that's military guys and gals are awesome, respectful, and make a good amount of money, and a room is kind of an upgrade from the barracks for them. So like that's a demographic that we target. It could just be like you're near like middle school or elementary school because like teachers don't make a ton. It could be you're near a university and so you have students coming. So anyway, you need to think of the sort of demographic that would actually want to rent a room in your area and be close to those folks. So those are 2 filters, location and size. Now you'll notice I actually don't set a bedroom filter, like a bedroom count filter, because we've bought a lot of properties that were 3 bedrooms, but over 3,000 square feet. And when we were done with it, it was 8 bedrooms, with the 3,000 square feet. So there's like, there's unfinished basements that can totally be finished out into, 3 bedrooms and a bath or something like that if it's big enough. We've converted garages into 2 or 3 bedrooms. Like we have a 3-car garage that we're turning into 2 bedrooms right now. Game rooms, sitting rooms, all of that. Our main idea is to preserve a living room and preserve the kitchen and preserve the laundry room. Otherwise, we don't need formal dining rooms. We don't need those extra spaces that I mentioned. So once the square footage, the location looks good, then we hop in and look at parking. So, right, parking's huge for co-living. You could imagine if we moved into a neighborhood and brought 8 cars with us, neighbors could be pissed if it was the wrong property, right? If that means that now I'm parking in front of their house, that's going to cause a big ruckus. So we're definitely only buying properties with lots of parking. Typically, that's something like a corner lot where folks can park in our driveway, on the street in front of our house and alongside our house also, without interfering with neighbors or making anybody mad. And then we hop in and look at the floor plan and see how many rooms we could turn it into and analyze it at that point.
That makes sense. What are some of the top ways to increase cash flow on a co-living property?
Biggest one that really unlocked our acquisitions is the garage conversion. That was the piece that I was missing. So deals are getting more expensive, or properties are at least as expensive as they were a year ago in our market, maybe a little bit higher. And interest rates are still decently high, all of that. So we really had to find ways to eke out a little extra cash flow, especially now that we invest with partners, right? There has to be even more meat on the bone because now we have to split that with someone. So that was the one thing that I wasn't thinking of is, oh shoot, any property with a 2-car garage, that's an extra 2 rooms for sure, which is an extra 1,400 a month, which is an extra 16K a year. Like if this used to be a break-even deal or a negative 2,000 a year deal, all of a sudden now we're positive 16,000, right? Like that's a huge difference. So garage has been a huge one. Other like little things, we'll rent out storage space if there is a like shed already at the property. I don't think it makes sense to buy a shed and put one in, but if one exists, cool. We rent it out for $50 a month. If it is a property where we haven't converted the garage, then we'll rent out the garage spaces for $120 a month each. So like we have some 3-car garages so that's $400, extra, $5,000 a year or something like that. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, that makes tons of sense. For the garage conversions, is this something that you have to like go through permitting for? I know like in San Diego, we can do garage conversion ADUs all day, but you have to go through the permitting process for them. So is that something that you guys are doing, or like how does it work in Colorado?
Yeah, I think it depends on your risk tolerance again. I will say a lot of things that are done in the co-living space right now are more on the, fly under the radar sort of deal. As definitely as you continue to scale though, like your risk tolerance, I think changes because your risk increases a lot, right? So like imagine we have 7 properties, every bedroom is like unpermitted or something like that, and garage conversion is unpermitted. Okay, well, shit is gonna hit the fan. Like when you have 51 rooms, if there's a 2% chance, like it's going to happen statistically. It's, whereas if you have one house with 5 rooms, you could go 30 years and like potentially never hit that issue. So, yeah, definitely as you scale, consider how to de-risk. So yeah, we're doing full permits on garage and interior, everything. And our city's been friendly to it.
Nice. So, yeah. So, I mean, and when you have that many rooms, right? And I'm assuming you're still looking for more deals, right? So, what does your week look like as somebody who's actively buying co-living spaces?
That's a good question. Yeah, so honestly, I'm huge on enjoying my life. I'm not one of those business owners that's going to run myself to death and do all that. The hardest part of the business journey has been having the W-2 and building the business at the same time. Now that we got out of that phase, I mean, I kind of treat our business like a W-2. Like I'm pretty much around 40 hours. I'm not killing myself. We're going on vacations. We're doing all that. So at this point, I'll go back a week whenever we had not just hired this property manager, because I don't really know what my week looks like now that some of that's freed up. So the first like 3-ish hours a day, we're on management type tasks. So that's things like, going to posting all of our rooms on Zillow and Facebook and Roomies and these different places, replying to folks on there, getting applications and working through those, handling any inner household conflict that's currently going on. At least once a month, there'll be something, out of our 7 houses where somebody's not getting along with someone. So we'll mediate that if it gets to that level to where we need to step in. Yeah, things like that are kind of the first 3 hours of the day. Otherwise, the rest of the time is pretty much spent, in my case, trying to automate the first 3 hours of the day, which honestly, we've gotten pretty good at. We've automated a lot of stuff, but that's kind of my background with like coding and everything. Other than that, though, acquisition time probably takes up the other like 3 or so hours of the day. So that's looking at deals, looking at markets that we're considering expanding to and looking at the deals in those markets, talking to potential partners. So, going to meetups and getting people's contacts and then following up with them later and seeing if they want to invest with us. Things like that are kind of maybe the other bit of the day. And yeah, that's probably it. So around 40 hours a week.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good. I think it's good to have those boundaries. So what outside of just hours, what kind of boundaries do you set in your day to make sure you don't get that that burnout?
Yeah. Beyond that, I mean, I don't know. That really is a good question. I mean, I think I work really hard during those 8 hours of the day, but once that time is over, like basically my time is over when my wife gets home. That's how I treat it. So as soon as she walks in the door, I'm open to her almost exclusively, like us just hanging out. The exception would be I do have, our tenant phone call app that we use. Pretty much I have every notification blocked on my phone except for that one. So like even my family members, they know if they text me, I'm probably not going to get back to them today. Twitter knows if I get a notification, I'm not going to look at it till tomorrow. Like once a day, I go through and look at my notifications, and that really helps to keep things, less stressful. Except for the tenant phone calls will come through because it could be a burst pipe or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Staying, I like that. For your relationship, it's like when she's home, that's the time, right? And I think that's really important. Where it's so easy for people to kind of get in their own little world and they're just sitting on the couch on their phone the whole time and not
Mhm.
even realizing that the person's home. So
Mhm.
I think that's really good. Those are really good. I think like tactical ways to stay off your phone at night. And people, like you're saying, I think people will start to get used to it, and they'll likely probably
Mhm.
stop reaching out to you at that time. Number one, or like they're gonna know like, hey, I'm gonna reach out to you during this time. I know. I think it was Dan Martell. He's like, hey, my family knows. Call me at 5 p.m. because that's when I'm driving home, and that's the time you can call me. Outside of that, I don't answer my phone calls. And
Yeah.
I'm I think that those boundaries are really important.
Yeah, if I could just
So
give one more like little tactical piece on that, like actually how to do the no notification thing. If you're on Android, there's this app called Daywise, Daywise. And then if you're on iPhone, I think it's actually built in now from what I was reading the other day because someone was asking me about it. But like in your settings, there's like notification screen or notification filter or something like that. And with both of these, both of these methods, you can like batch your notifications. So that's actually what I'm doing. This in the background, this thing's catching every notification this app is and storing it until 8 a.m. and then I get it. So anyway, that's tactically how I'm doing it. If anyone
oh,
wanted to reduce the notifications they get.
that's awesome. I didn't know you could batch notifications like that. That's a really good. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
that on my phone.
yeah.
Wow.
So then you just let certain apps through all the time. Like you could even let text through from your wife. Like I do have that set up. So text from my wife and then the tenant phone call app.
I think that's fair. I think that one makes sense. So a little bit more tactical. I actually have another question going back to what you said about, the half of your day you spent automating. So if somebody, we all hear the word automation, but what is that like? What does that actually mean for somebody? For me, for example, if I was building my business and I wanted to automate certain things in my business, what are the highest leverage things to automate and how do you actually do that?
Yeah, honestly, this is a really tough question because of my background, I definitely go into the weeds and like automate the shit out of like the smallest things because it takes me a second to do it to automate it. But like the average Joe honestly couldn't. Um, but as far as things that everyone could do, one of the bigger things, this is actually yeah. Uh, this is a good one. Automating replies to tenant inquiries. So this is on the property management side, right? But you get all the, hey, is this available? Hey, is this available? Right? Everyone, reaching out to you about your rental that you have posted on Zillow and Facebook and all these places. You can automate replies to a lot of those. This was the very first thing we automated actually, because it was a big part of my day. It's such an interrupting thing, right? Yeah, you're sitting on the couch and like I tell my wife, hey, yeah, I do have to reply to these texts so that we get tenants in our properties. They're off work right now. We're off work right now. So this is just the time that I have to reply to them. And so it was like a very interrupting 5-second thing that I would always have to just reply to this guy, this quick answer. So depending on the service, you can automate it in different ways. If it's a service like Zillow, where when someone messages you, it shoots you an email and it says, "Hey, this person said this. Do you want to reply to them?" If it's one of those where when you reply to the email, it actually does send to that person, then it's super easy to automate. So we just set up a Gmail filter. So any message from Zillow goes to this certain folder. And then there's a little thing that you can set up that you guys can DM me about because I actually have a whole guide for how to do this. And I send it out to folks who are in like my co-living community. So just DM me the word like, automate or something, and I'll send this guide over to you. There's this little code that you can set up that will, every time someone emails you or Zillow emails you, it replies with whatever you want. So we reply and just tell them every time, hey, thanks for your interest. Go to this website. That's where you can see all the details about the rooms. And there's a little form at the bottom that you fill out. And then that actually gets someone to actually reach out and call them, after that. So you can automate any service like that. Apartments.com does emails like that, and so does Zillow. The tricky ones are like Facebook Marketplace. Those are harder to automate. It's doable, but you can reach out if anybody wants. You can DM me. So it's hard.
I might be hitting you up on that. So like in terms of those automations, like what are you using to actually connect those things? Like that's I think a question that I have is like how do you actually
Yeah. So for the email case, it's all just inside of Gmail. It's like literally with Gmail, you can move it to a certain folder, and then Google has this thing called Google App Script that you can use that to kind of monitor that folder, and when a new thing shows up in there, send them this email. But typically, and I think this is what you're getting at, this is a good way to take it. The average Joe can automate things with Zapier or Make.com. Either of those do allow you to do pretty decent automations. It just has a cost to it. It's $40 a month or something like that. But it allows you to connect things that are not talking to each other and now you can make them talk to each other and do custom things with them. So for example, like we don't have it set up this way, but this would be the way the average Joe would do it. When somebody fills out that Google form or that whatever form, when you reply to the potential applicant, hey, thanks for your interest, go check out this website or go check out this Google form and then we'll get back to you. You could totally set that up. And in fact, this is how I do it in the tutorial thing that I can send you guys if you reach out. You can set that up to Zapier is watching the Google form. When a new one comes in, check these responses. Do they say they have pets? If you say you only don't allow pets, cool. If they select no, all right, then that's a pass. Do they pass on the income? Do they pass on the credit check? Whatever. If all of that looks good, then we send them an email and we're like, hey, based on your quick little answers that you gave there, it looks like you could qualify. So here's the application, right? So that's something that like Zapier can do, is connecting like Google form to an email, connecting, your website to this other thing. When you get a text message that's in this folder, send it over, to this other app. So it allows you to connect different apps together.
That's awesome. That's such a useful one for so many people, I think. So in terms of saving time and being very efficient with your time, like automations, when in your journey did you write a book for BiggerPockets, and how did you do that?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. They told me no a handful of times. So yeah, I think it was probably 2 years ago, maybe, is when the bug was planted to write the book. It was like Memorial Day or 4th of July or something like that. Everyone had gone home. I'm just sitting there with my wife and then my friend who's my real estate agent. And whatever, we're just drinking beers and hanging out. And they're like, dude, you got to write this book. They're like, there's no co-living book, there's no room rental book. You got to do this. I'm like, dude, what the heck? Dude, I haven't written a paper since college. No way. I hate writing. And, they're like, yeah, I think you could really do it. At that point, yeah, 5 properties, something like that. I'm like, all right, well, I'll think about it. And the more I thought about it and the more my wife talked to me about it, it's like, this could be huge for the country and for our brand at the same time. Like there's like selfish reasons to do it and non-selfish reasons to do it. But this co-living thing is, such a good solution for almost every city across the country. Like, when studio apartments are $1,600 a month and, you have your average teacher making whatever, they're probably spending 60, 70, 80% of their income on their rent, right? So if I can teach more people how to do this, then it could actually literally just change thousands of lives. Like it's kind of nuts. So that was one part of it. And then the second part is like, oh, well, it'll make our brand bigger and we can get more partners and I can go on, Brian's podcast and do all that. So they kind of planted the bug and I started drafting it. I wrote a couple of chapters and then I went to a BiggerPockets meetup in Denver, hosted like by actual BiggerPockets. Like it's actually like at their headquarters. And I've been to a few of those and met some of the publishing girls. And anyway, I walked up to one of them and was telling them about what I'm working on. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds so cool. What's co-living? And I'm like, exactly. More people need to know about this. So anyway, they were like, yeah, submit this application, whatever. I submitted it. They said no, along with my 2 chapters. And I came back a few months later and was like, hey, the whole thing's done. Will you do it now? And they were like, actually, we do need to release one more book. And actually, this is pretty good. I'm like, yeah, my wife edited the whole thing. It's way better than it used to be. And so then they said yes.
Dude, that's amazing. So yeah, I guess like, how did you become the co-living space guy? Like what made you make that decision that was the route you were going to take versus all the other shiny objects out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've always kind of followed advice of like all these podcast guys, like you listen to Brandon Turner and everyone, and they're like, oh, you should document stuff before you hire, right? Exactly like I was telling you guys in the beginning of this. I was like, yeah, maybe I should do that. They're like, oh, hey, if you need to be the one to step up and be the leader in this space, if there's not one, like, yeah, maybe I should do that. So I kind of just kept doing what everybody was telling me to do. And I know a lot of people don't do that. And in hindsight, it felt like I was just doing a new thing every once in a while. But looking back, it really made a big difference implementing all these different things that podcasts and books and all these education sources were telling me. But co-living specifically, I mean, of course, that was just the space that we were in, and we didn't know anyone else in that space. So we were just naturally going to be the leaders there because no one else was there. And now there is a space for it, which is cool. Like we have a community with 700 folks and all that. So there are people interested in it now. But at the time, we were kind of the only ones.
That's crazy. And how, I guess like, obviously having a lot of some partners now, how difficult was it to I guess, explain what you're doing to them and why your unique value proposition was a route that you think that they should invest in versus all those other shiny objects?
Yeah. It was super easy, which I think that means that you have a good strategy. Like the sales pitch it wasn't hard. Kind of our typical, potential partner is someone who was started buying long-term rentals in Colorado in 2015 or something, and had this huge equity run up. And when they bought it, you could self-manage as a long-term rental and it cash flowed, and that's super cool. And now they have all this equity and they're like, dude, I want to buy more rentals, but all I know how to do is a long-term rental, and that's going to make me negative $1,000 a month, at least. And so it was a really easy sell, sell in quotes. I mean, I don't, that's technically what it is, but we treat it super casual. But when I'm talking to them, I'm like, well, what if we bought a property together, and now you're not self-managing anymore? Like, I'm doing all that. So you don't have to do that work you did with the other ones. And even after we split cash flow, you're still making more than you did at your other property, right? So co-living is ridiculous. The property we just closed 3 or 4 months ago now would have rented for $2,200 a month to a traditional family. Instead, we're getting $10,000 a month in income just from that one property. Nuts. Now then you have expenses and all that, right? But there's a lot of cash flow to be had. So after expenses, it's $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
No, that's crazy, and that's just on one property. Like that model makes so much sense, and I think that it sounds like your background, you are very analytical, which allows you to create some of these systems and processes where if because a lot of people don't do rent by the room, right? Like there's no property managers that really do that. So I guess that's actually a really good question. Do you manage for other people, or have you ever considered managing for other people in this co-living space? Because there's a huge gap in the market for it.
Yeah, there is a really big gap in the market for that right now. Because so if property managers did exist in the space, which there are some, but if they were plentiful, I wouldn't be partnering with anyone. They would just buy it themselves and probably hire the PM, right? I mean, there is some more work to be done. Then they would be managing the remodel and all that. But they'd make a lot more money if they did that for a little bit more work. But that literally doesn't exist in the space right now. So you are able to find some managers. I've yet to find any that are really good, though, honestly. I've yet to find any that I personally would put my properties with. But that's not where I'm filling the void. So we are not doing property management for other people. What we're doing instead right now is we're actually building property management software for co-living that we're pretty far along on. It's called Co-Living Pro. It's at colivingpro.io. We have some features launched right now. You can go there and sign up and use dynamic pricing to price your rooms over time. That was an algorithm that we built into it. That's super cool. But we're adding rent collection and group chats for the house and all sorts of stuff. So that's kind of the approach where I think our unique ability is we can go build out tech solutions with short-term rentals. 6, 7, 8 years ago, Hospitable didn't exist. Whatever these other short-term rental management softwares are, it was man, you got to have a pen and a paper and a spreadsheet and go to town. That's kind of where co-living is at right now. So we're trying to make it a little more accessible for the Joe that can't automate everything by creating that solution for them.
No, that's rad. With I think there's so many opportunities when you own a space, like you do. You have a very unique ability to create a solution for so many people. So I like that you have the community, and then also that secondary thing being that software. I'm doing something very similar for the ADU space right now, because it's a natural solution. When you get enough people around you, they have this need of, okay, cool, how do they leverage your expertise at a deeper level? And I think the best way to do that is by creating some sort of software that allows them to leverage what your experience is.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same exact thing with the book and all that. It's not like I set out to do any of this super duper duper intentionally. It was an opportunity showed up. I thought about it, and I was like, we could do that, right?
That makes sense.
I don't think you have to go out and try to solve world hunger. It's just what's an issue for you right now? Oh, shoot. Well, I'm using WhatsApp for this and this and this and this and this. Well, let's just put it all in one spot, and people might like that. Yeah, people like it. Good.
It makes so much sense. Dude, before we wrap up, I want to ask one more question, kind of separate from specifically the co-living. So if you had one thing that you could say you did really, really well from the get-go of your adulthood that set you up to be able to do what you're doing now, what is that habit or that thing that has allowed you to do it?
Networking. No hesitation. Networking 10,000%. So in high school, I was very much a shy person. right? Definitely not making introductions to anyone. Like an impressive person like rolls through town or whatever, I'm not going to go ask them for coffee, right? Definitely not going to do any of that. Whenever I went to college, I was also uncomfortable, but my dad was like, "Hey, why don't you, after every class, your first, freshman classes, why don't you go meet the professor? I promise you it'll like pay off." I mean, and he didn't really give me any details, but I'm like, okay, like I'll do that. So I go meet every professor. Okay, well, what happened then? Well, now they knew me, and eventually that turned into the like first like laboratory job thing on campus. I forget what we called it, but working for one of the professors. Then I met a guy who came into the lab that turned into the first internship. Then talking with other people at that internship, that turned into like an internship at NASA. That turned into the next internship at NASA. That turned into the later things. And then in the real estate space, it turned into everything. So by the time I graduated, I was very good at networking. Like, I'm going to go to a meetup. I can talk anybody's ear off. I can listen to whatever they have to say. I can say back whatever they want to make them hear and make them feel better. I can do the whole thing. So that's literally how I got the book deal. There was somebody I networked with who knew BiggerPockets that kind of gave me a nudge to get in the door. Guy I had been networking with for 2 years. I had already talked to the publishing people at other meetups that BiggerPockets had. Right, I already had all these warm intros kind of already built up before I made an ask. I never knew if I would ask them anything, but I mean, turns out I did. But there's a lot of relationships I've built, over the last few years where I've never made an ask. Maybe I'll never make an ask. But those like 2 or 3 people that do have something that I can leverage off of too. Cool. Well, we're gonna go talk together, build something big together, like a book deal, like a software, like a something, because I've just been building all these relationships kind of in the background.
That's such a good answer. I have for so many things in my career have been just because I was in a room and I was talking to a dude and I was like, oh yeah, we should do something, or like this could work, and you just kind of continue pursuing it, and yeah. So I think that's so good. That's so good, man. Yeah. So if people want to get a hold of you, or find a way to add value to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, biggest thing would be on Instagram. So just my name, Miller McSwain. Beyond that, if you do DM me over there, we have discount codes for the book to get 25% off. Or actually, you can just go to colivingbook.com. So I'll say those 2 things. Yeah, reach out on Instagram if you want to chat. And then colivingbook.com has the book for 25% off. And you can find the community and all sorts of stuff and the place that it redirects you to.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Miller, the co-living king McSwain. I really appreciate you being on, and we will talk to you next time.
That's it for this episode of the Builder Nation podcast. If it gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's leveling up. Until next time, keep building.